To be fair, I probably went into prison a new person. I got arrested in April 2004. You've got to go through adversity to become a winner. You're going to get knocked down in life. It's how you get up. It's how you react. Then the police cells for 4 nights, and for that day onwards, basically, I can remember sitting in there saying, I need to change my life. How am I going to change my life? So I'm open. I'm honest. There you go.
Welcome to the Winners Mindset podcast. David, how are you?
I'm okay, thank you. Yeah, I'm okay. Busy day, preparing for a game on Wednesday, but yeah, okay.
How's the new campaign heading along for you guys?
Yeah, it's been okay. We had a wee bit of a bump in the road on Saturday. We had a player sent off and we came off the back of a big defeat. But I was fairly comfortable when we had 11 men in the park. We were probably the better team.
Yeah.
And then got a man sent off and lost the game 5-0, gave 2 penalties away. So
yeah,
a wee bit disappointed in the scoreline, but very, very difficult going to a good Aberdeen team with 10 men.
For sure, yeah. Just having to bounce back then next game for sure. Yeah, for sure. When I watched and I heard your story once, I was really just wowed by it, because obviously you've grown up in Glasgow, and then you obviously went your life was kind of really crazy because you obviously went to prison, but then you came out of that as kind of like a new person, and look where you are now compared to then. It's just like really inspiring.
I would, to be fair, I probably went into prison a new person. I got arrested in April 2004, and for that moment onwards, I was in the police cells for 4 nights, and for that day onwards, basically, I can remember sitting in there saying, I need to change my life. How am I going to change my life? So for April 2004 to the present day, I've been looking to change my life. I was on bail for 2.5 years, so I never went to prison till October 2006. And between April 2004 and October 2006, I enrolled in a university programme at Heriot Watt University in Scotland. And really, for that day onwards, in April 2004, bank holiday weekend at Easter, I came out on the Monday morning, Monday night. I was determined that I was going to change my life. I knew I had to change my life.
When I read your story, for me, to show how far you've come, is just really inspiring. And I think when people hear more about it, I think they'll really learn about it and really get inspired.
Thanks very much.
So for you, David, what is a winner's mindset?
Is there a winner's? I think to be a winner, you've got to be a loser. I believe you are what you make of life. So I've had a lot of adversity in my life. Some of it I've caused myself. But I think you've got to go through adversity to become a winner. You're going to get knocked down in life. It's how you get up. It's how you react. Obviously, I'm a lot better at making decisions in my life now. Previously, before 2004, I'd probably say it was a wee bit immature in terms of decision making. Consequences, I never really cared about the consequences of my actions pre-2004, which led me to getting charged with the police. Post 2004, I think everything I do now, I try and actions have consequences, and I try and put that into the decision-making process of anything I do. But I do believe to a winner, I'm out the other end. I'm not committing crime. I'm not involved in serious crime. I'm not involved in any kind of crime. So I'm a winner from that respect. I've managed to change everything about my life. But I think it came from having that mental resilience, having that desire, the application, the discipline to go and change my life, because it would be very, very easy to fall back to your ways, fall back to your, I'm going to say your comfort zone, although it's not, you're not comfortable when you're committing crime, but you fall back to your ways, which is kind of your comfort zone. It's what you know, it's where you're from. So you've got to take yourself out of your comfort zone. You've got to change. You've got to shape your own future. And I live every day. I don't live on my past. I try and put my past behind me. I don't mind talking about it. I'm honest. I'm honest about that. I'm open and honest. And I know I can affect the future. Only David Martindale can change the future. I can't change my past. What's happened's happened. I can never change that. I can only talk about it and hope that it might help someone along the way. So a winner's mindset, I think it's having that discipline to keep going every day, have that desire and drive to change your life.
How hard though was it afterwards though, mentally, to kind of accept that and kind of move on and then come back? How hard was it?
I don't think I found it hard. I don't know. I'm going to. I don't know. I'm going to say fortunate, but I don't think I was fortunate. I don't mean it in that term. When I got arrested in April 2004, I never got in prison till October 2006. So I had 2.5 years of my life spent on bail, knowing I was going to prison. That was probably the most difficult aspect of the arrest. Going to prison was a bit of closure. I knew it was going to happen. That was closure. Once I got my sentence, I knew what I had to do to get out the other end. But for 2.5 years, I lived my life on a daily basis. All I could do was, the last thing I thought about when I went to bed was going to prison. The first thing I thought about in the morning when I woke up was going to prison. I went about my everyday life in between those times. So they 2.5 years spent on bail, living my life. I went to university, I became a mature student. They helped shape me for the person I am today.
Yeah. What's your background like? So obviously you're a Glasgow boy, so.
Yeah, so grew up in Govan, tough housing estate.
Yeah.
Poverty, probably more so now than years ago. So that was 40 years ago. I grew up in Govan. I'm 48 now. So I roughly left Govan when I was about 78, something along the lines. So 40 years ago, Govan was an industrial town, a shipbuilding industry. There's a lot of poverty and crime, and I think a lot of crime comes from poverty. I do believe that.
Yeah.
So I moved to Livingston in what they called the Glasgow overspill. So Glasgow was so dense in its population that a lot of people moved out to new towns outside of Glasgow. Livingston was one of these new towns. It was purpose built to take the population of Glasgow. It was bursting to make take it out into out with Glasgow, Livingston, Cumbernauld, certain towns. So I moved to Livingston when I was around 8 years old, but you were still with people from Glasgow because it was a lot of people that had been rehoused to Livingston from Glasgow.
Yeah.
And I stayed in a housing scheme called Craighill in Livingston. It's 5 minutes from the football stadium where I work today. And it was a tough housing estate. There's a lot of gang violence, and I was involved in the gang violence. I grew up, but I genuinely didn't know anything different. I was involved, like where I grew up, that was normal to me. That was just normal. Drugs, gangs, violence, crime. It was kind of all went hand in hand with one another, if I'm honest.
Yeah.
And now I can understand that, and it's not a reason. It's not a get out. I'm not trying to get out. The reason I went to prison was me, but I was a product of my environment also. There was a lot of good people grew up in Craighill that didn't follow the path that I led, but obviously I was one of the ones that got caught up in that, and I've only got myself to blame. But I was probably a product of my own environment in that time, and I was probably a product of poverty. I didn't know I could go to university. I didn't think I could go to college. I didn't have many job prospects. How was I going to go and get a car? How was I going to get the new trainers? That type of thing. So I probably chose the easy route in life, where crime, and I think crime's probably the cowardly way out, opposed to try to get a job. But again, it was difficult to just go and get a job. So does that make sense?
Yeah, it does, because it's a big problem now, I think, because when people grow up, that's all they know is that side of the world. That's that side of, living life, which is not their fault, which is obviously not your fault when you were young, but that's just
but I could have made better choices in my life. I could have. I'm to blame for that. Like I've got a lot of friends for Craighill that grew up in my environment, that went to university, that went to college. But what I'd probably say to that is their mums and dads were the ones that probably had bought houses, 2 cars. So they were maybe, I don't know, a wee bit more educational. Whereas we grew up, I was in a council house, a council estate, and my mum and dad provided a roof over my head and food on the table. But I didn't really understand there was more to my childhood growing up. I played football. I went out with my pals at the weekend or at the evening. So, albeit, yeah, I'm a product of the environment, but I chose to be a product of that environment also, whereas some of my other friends were more fortunate and managed to get out of the scheme mentality.
Yeah. Did you play for Rangers and Motherwell?
I was signed at Rangers when I was about 14. I think it was around 13, 14, 15. And Rangers used to have soccer schools throughout Scotland, I think. And I was involved. I got chosen to be the one that went and trained at Dean's High School in Livingston. And then we went through to Glasgow now and again, but I never lasted long. I snapped my fibia and my tibia playing for a pub team. So every weekend, my dad used to go, because I was one of the better football players for the boys in the pub, the older boys that I played football with. Come and play with David, come and play with a man short. And I would go and play. And it was a pub league. I would go and play with one of the better players in the team, and I snapped my leg, my fibia and my tibia. And really at that point, football, that was kind of where I lost touch with football, if I'm honest. It was around 15, 16 at this point. And a leg break in those days, we were in a full cast. It wasn't a 6-week process, it was a 6 to 12 month process all those years ago. I kind of lost touch with football, and that was probably a turning point, whereas football became less important in my life and I was distracted by other things in life.
Was your goal always to be a player for Rangers?
I'll be honest, I always got told, oh, you could do this, you could do that, but I genuinely never thought that was something that would be afforded to me. David Martindale for the council estate, the scheme, I never realised that I actually had that genuine opportunity. Always got told I had the ability, but used to watch Match of the Day, used to watch, I can't remember what it was called in Scotland at that time, we used to watch Saint and Greavesy. It was more the English-based English football. And I think it was Sports Scene maybe at that time. I can't remember the Scottish version, but I used to sit and watch that, but at no point did I ever feel that would be me one day. I just felt so far away from reality for me that it wasn't achievable, and I wasn't willing to put the hard work and the discipline into trying to achieve that, because I genuinely thought it wouldn't happen for somebody like David Martindale from a council estate.
When did you know that you wanted to be a manager then, or a coach, if you like? Never think that far ahead.
No.
Was that?
I came out. I was lucky. I came out of prison and I started playing fifth-tier football in Scotland. So if you look at the Scottish football structure, you've got the Premier League, the Championship, League One, League Two, and then below that, what we'd call Tier 5. I managed to get myself into roughly Tier 5 level of football. I went back to people I knew and I got into coaching. And then an opportunity at Livingston just came up to come in, help out at Livingston, and I kind of done that. At no point in time did I feel I'd be at Livingston for any more than 6 weeks, 6 months or 6 years. I just came in every day to help the club out, but also to potentially open up opportunities with me with Livingston, but at no point in time did I ever see myself being the first team manager. And even when I was assistant manager, I had no aspirations to be the first team manager.
Yeah.
I believe in football, when you're part of a coaching staff, if I had aspirations to be the manager, you're not doing your job properly, because you're meant to be there supporting the manager, not trying to take his job. So I never really had any aspirations to be the manager. I just was quite happy in my role at the club. For about 2016 onwards, 2016 going into 2017 season, I basically got given the keys to the football club. We got relegated to League One, which was Tier 3 in Scotland. And basically the people who had shares in the club disappeared, to be honest. Disappeared, left me the keys and said, you can go on with running the football club.
Yeah.
And within 2 years, I had good business, local people that came in and helped me, but within 2 years, we were back in the Scottish Premier League. We got back-to-back promotions for Tier 3 to Tier 2, then for Tier 2 to Tier 1. And then I found myself in the Scottish Premier League, and we were so unprepared as a club. Not for the footballing side on the park for 90 minutes, that was okay. We were more than capable of handling our own. Everywhere else throughout the club, because I'd been running the club with me and a couple of directors who helped if we ran out of money, they'd put a few pounds in the bank to pay the wages until we got money back in the bank and they took it back out. It was me, someone that helped with the maintenance and a receptionist and the football and stuff. That's all we had at the football club on a daily basis. So
You kind of progressed the club through the ranks.
yeah, I played. Listen, I've had a lot of help. I'm not going to say David Martindale's been the one that done this, but I've had a lot of help for a lot of different people. But I've sacrificed a lot in my own life, including my family at times. I've got a daughter, I've got a wife, I've got a son for a previous relationship, and I've had to make a lot of sacrifices to get where I am today. I do believe that wall that I've got to get over is a lot higher than other people, but do you know what? I built that wall. It was me that put that obstacle in front of me. And I'm more than happy to keep proving myself and keep working hard to see where my career takes me. I understand I've got a past. I understand people have got an opinion. And I understand that I've got to jump the higher obstacles than maybe other people just to prove my worth. But I'm more than capable of doing that. And do you know what? I made the obstacles. It was me who put the obstacles in my path. So I've not got a problem with that.
Was it ever a worry though? Because obviously life now is about perspective of you. Now you're heading in to be the manager of the club, and obviously you've done this in the past. So were you worried about what people's perspective would?
Yeah, I think I got away with being an assistant manager. It was a wee bit of press, but it wasn't really about David Martindale. It wasn't until we went to the Premier League and the focus on the club became so much more from a media perspective.
Yeah.
So yeah, I was worried about that. I didn't want to be the manager. I didn't want to put my wife and my daughter through all the negativity. My daughter wasn't born when I was in prison.
Yeah.
She started school. And did I really want all our school friends know her dad had been in prison? Did I really want all our school friends' parents thinking, there's George's dad, he's been in prison? I didn't want any of that.
Yeah.
My wife had started her own business. I didn't want her tarred with my past. So it was a really difficult aspect. I got offered the job when we returned to the Premier League in 2018, 2019. Got offered to be the manager and I never took it. One, I don't think I was prepared to be the manager at that point in time. Two, I don't think it would have been correct for the club. But three, most importantly, I didn't want the adverse publicity of doing so.
Yeah.
We brought a manager in, but it never really worked out properly. It was a player manager, never really worked out, and Kenny decided to leave. And within 6 weeks of Kenny leaving, Kenny was only at the club for 6 weeks, 8 weeks, something along the lines. It never really worked out for either of us. I was all over the papers. So that adverse negativity that I was trying to stay away from, I got it anyway. So for a 3-4 week period, it was pretty horrendous, to be honest.
Yeah.
I remember trying to get Martha not to read the papers, not to buy the papers, stay off social media. I'm thick-skinned and I can deal with it, but I didn't think it was fair that my family had to deal with my past. Anyway, so Gary Holt came into the club. He took over the manager's job, and me and Gary worked well together for a couple of years. And Gary said, look, I think I've ran my course. It's time for me to go. I went, right, no problem. And the club came back to me and said, do you want to do this? And the negative adverse publicity that I had 2 years ago wasn't there now, because it had been said, it had been done, everybody knew. I'd also managed to get my coaching badges. And I thought, do you know what, I do want to do this. I do want to do this. But that wasn't until I'd been at the club 7 years previously. So I'm now going into my 10th season at Livingston Football Club. And to be honest, when I walked in this building, I had no aspirations to be here 10 months, 10 years. I just came in and took every day as it was. If it lasted 10 minutes, brilliant. If it lasted 10 weeks, 10 months, I'd have been delighted. But at no point in time did I think when I walked through these doors in 2014, I'd be sitting here. I'm going into my 10th season. So I'd be sitting here thinking I was going into my 10th season as a football manager.
Yeah, that's crazy. What's your style of management like your leadership style? How do you like to motivate the players?
Obviously, I've got a very different skill set to most managers. Most managers have played top flight football at a certain level, and have been involved in professional football for 15, 20 years. I had no involvement in professional football. I'm university educated, so academically I'm intelligent enough to find solutions to problems. But I think I'm also very honest and candid with people. So my style is I'm open, I'm honest. And what happens in the change room, what happens in the park is it stays there, it's not personal. And out with the changing room, I'll do anything for my players, absolutely anything for my players.
Yeah.
I'm very honest, very open. I probably could say I'm pretty intense as well. And I can be too honest at times, and I do understand that I can come across as being a wee bit cold-hearted or brutal. But I think it's for anyone to succeed in life, you need to be told the truth. You need to understand as a football player why you're not playing or why you're not in the match day squads. I don't like sugarcoating stuff. I'd rather tell boys the truth. And I think I get the best out of players because I know I'm honest with them at all times.
How hard are those conversations, though, you know, to be direct to them at times?
It's hard because you build relationships with players emotionally. So you do have a relationship with someone just on a human level. But I do believe by telling the truth, it allows everybody to move on and get on with their future. Why would you not tell somebody why they're not playing? Why would you not tell somebody why they're not in the match day squad? Because you've got to allow that individual the opportunity to correct that. Now, I'm not, everything that I say is not always going to be right, but fortunately, unfortunately, I'm the manager, and how I want to play has got to be along the lines of how I want to play. It's my philosophy. If a player comes in, he doesn't quite fit into that philosophy, you're as well having that conversation earlier, sooner rather than later, because it doesn't benefit anyone. And it's something that I try and speak to younger players about. I think in society, or modern day football player, they come in, they're not going to play for your first team. They hang around academy squads, they hang around reserve squads, and they waste 4 or 5 years of their life trying to be a first team player at Livingston, Celtic, Rangers, Aberdeen, Dundee United, Hibs, Hearts, wherever it is. Where I think you can be telling these players, like, go and get yourself into college, university, get something behind you while you're trying to make it as a professional footballer. Because I think today there's a lot of the chances of young players succeeding in professional football are minimal. They're very, very low. 1 to 3%, something along these lines. There's a lot of failure in football. And I try to think if I can fast track that process, whether it's going to lead to success or whether it's going to lead to, I'm not going to say failure, but lead to it not working out the way they wanted it to work out. I think the quicker you can do that between both parties, the better for everyone.
Yeah, because even if I'm playing now, like for me, like of course I want to be this and then the other playing.
Of course you do.
But you've got to have that other plan. If this happens or if I change the direction, then I can then fall to this.
Yeah.
Important because obviously there's a lot of young players now that will go, it's this or nothing, and then it kind of collapses on them. And you see like a lot of academies now in the UK that happens, and then they're finished. And
they're maybe sitting at 22, 23, and for they 4 years previously, their friend who maybe got released when they were 18s went to university and got a degree and he's in working, but he's maybe playing a part-time level of football and doing well in football, whereas sometimes it's difficult. I've taken away the full-time academy side, the kids at the club. So from 16 onwards, you sign with the under 18s or you sign with the reserve team, but it's part-time. We train at night and we play on a Friday or play on a Saturday or a Sunday. So it's part-time, which then allows these players to go to college, go to university, or even go and get an apprenticeship or a job. Now, see, in 2 years' time, if you're 16 and you hit the age of 18, you've been doing your part-time stuff, you're playing part-time with Livingston, you've done really well, I'll then invite you into the first team environment. But do you know what? You've been out working in the industry or at college or at university or stayed on at school to try and get the academic qualifications that's going to help you out in life. And for me, that's the way forward. Maybe not bringing 30 players in a full-time environment and 29 of the players in 4 years' time aren't going to make it and there's nothing to fall back on.
Exactly. Yeah.
So for 16 onwards, you're in here on a part-time basis, and we encourage you to go and get a full-time job or get yourself into full-time education.
Yeah, that's what been really interesting. So now we're going to go into a quick fire questions. turn it off. So, what is your best moment as a manager?
Best moment. There's been a few big victories, but I think Hampden, when we won 1-0 in the semi-final to get ourselves to a cup final, that's probably got to be one that's up there. So getting to a cup final, but the feeling in the semi-final in the changing rooms, knowing we were going back to the National Stadium to compete in a cup final, was probably the best feeling. And if I'd won that cup, that would probably have been trumped the semi-final victory, but unfortunately we lost that game.
Best manager you've come up against?
God. I genuinely could answer this probably with about 6, 7. I think from a persona point of view, at his time, probably Steven Gerrard.
Yeah, and you can say that.
If you ask me this question in 6 weeks, I'm probably going to say Ange Postecoglou, because we play Celtic in a couple of weeks, and I think Ange has got Celtic playing fantastically well. So if you were to ask me this question in a couple of weeks' time, I'd probably change the answer for Steve. But up to this point in time, probably Steven Gerrard. He's carries his cell extremely well. He was an unbelievable football player, and it was really, really good to put my wits against him in the dugout.
Yeah. The best team you've come up against?
I think I'm going to give you a very similar answer.
Steven Gerrard's team.
Aye, Gerrard at Rangers, they were brilliant at times. Really, really good.
Yeah.
We actually managed to beat Stephen 1-0 his first game at Livingston. We won 1-0. But over his term at Ibrox, I'd think Stephen's been the most difficult manager I've had to play against. But I think I could probably change that answer in a couple of weeks if you ask me in a couple of weeks, because I've got a feeling that the way Ange has got Celtic playing football is extremely exciting. It's difficult to play against. It's very dynamic. And I think I could probably answer that Ange Postecoglou in 2 weeks' time. But up until this point, Stephen, but I think that might change.
This is still Stephen. The biggest lesson you've learned in your life?
Actions and consequences. That's, for me, every decision I make in my life now, I think about the consequences of that action. That might sound a wee bit cheesy. I didn't generally, any of my actions previously to going to prison, I can hand in heart say I probably never gave it too much thought. I just got on with it. I just done it. I never gave it any thought. Now I try and think every decision I make in my life has got a consequence. So I think about my actions before I action those actions, if that makes sense.
Yeah. 3 non-negotiable behaviours as a manager.
Humility. I think you've got to be humble. I think you've got to show that side to you. I think you've got to have a lot of discipline in your life. But do you know what? The biggest one's honesty. Just be honest. I've got no time in football. It's a very cynical environment. And I can't be doing, mate, sometimes the amount of dishonest individuals you come across in football. You probably do that in any walk of your life. For me, humble, honesty and discipline.
Yeah. Best manager you've ever seen, literally you've ever seen?
Oh, difficult. Oh my God, there's so many. There's so many. Like, go back, it does change. If you're looking at now, you're looking at Pep, unbelievable. You're looking at Klopp, incredible. Jose Mourinho on his day, unbelievable. Then I'll take you back a wee bit. Sir Alex Ferguson, who is probably one of the biggest influences. Sir Alex was born in Govan. I was born in Govan. So you always look for Alex Ferguson's results at Man United. So Sir Alex, but there's that many managers you go back in time. Bill Shankly, there's loads of incredible human beings, and even to a certain degree, Walter Smith at Rangers, that was probably a more prominent one that springs to mind. But if I had to go one for a footballing perspective, at this point in time, the more modern day, you're probably going to go Pep Guardiola. if I go back slightly a little bit longer, Sir Alex Ferguson.
Excellent, this is the last one. Describe yourself in 3 words.
Oh my God. Well, I think I've done that. I think I've probably done.
Mindset.
Yeah, I think I'm quite robust from a mental point of view.
Yeah.
In terms of my mental resilience, I'm able to handle difficult decisions, and that probably comes from the amount of adversity I've had in my life previously, most of it through myself. So my mental resilience is big. I try to be as positive as I possibly can, and I try to be honest. I just try to be honest. I try in everything I'm talking about. I don't like sugarcoating things. I don't like papering over the cracks. I just try to be honest with people. And I think if you do that, when you go home at night and you put your head in the pillow, as long as you feel you're being honest with someone, I think that's all you can really ask for in life, is honesty.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. So that is the end now of the podcast with you, David. You've been a fantastic guest, obviously, with all your experience.
Thank you very much.
And again, just before we end off, this is awareness for people that stammer and have any disability, that they can do something like this and they can put themselves out there and believe too. So cheers.
Good for you. Good for you. I thought you done very well there, and thanks very much.
Very much. Cheers. Thank you.
Cheers. Bye-bye. Bye-bye.